5 billion people are active on social media right now. They post their meals, their moods, their milestones, and then there are the others, the ones who watch, who scroll, who notice everything and share almost nothing. Maybe that's you. You have a phone, you probably have accounts, you might even check them regularly, but when something good happens in your life, your first instinct isn't to photograph it. This video is about people whose relationship with visibility is fundamentally different from the norm. People who don't need an audience to confirm that something was real. And as it turns out, psychology has quite a lot to say about why some people are simply wired that way. Here's something that happens in the brain the moment most people decide to post something. Before the photo is uploaded, before the caption is written, a quiet internal interview begins. Will people respond to this? Does this make me look interesting? Is this moment worth sharing? Or does it make my life look ordinary? It happens fast, almost automatically. In the 1950s, sociologist Irving Goffman introduced the idea that human beings are always performing. In every social situation, we wear a kind of mask, carefully adjusting how we speak, what we show, what we hide, based on who is watching. He called it impression management. Social media didn't create this instinct, but it amplified it. For some people, that process feels completely natural. For others, it feels quietly exhausting before it even begins. When you post something publicly, you're not just sharing a moment. You're opening a file on yourself. Every post becomes a small public record, and unlike a conversation that fades, the internet keeps it. Researchers studying social media behavior have identified a large and often invisible group they call lurkers. People who scroll regularly but rarely or never post. Studies published in Frontiers in Psychology found that the reasons aren't apathy or laziness. The most common causes are fear of judgment, privacy concerns, exhaustion from social comparison, and a quiet but persistent sense that participating publicly costs something that passive viewing doesn't. And there's something important in that decision. Avoiding the performance isn't the same as avoiding life. Some moments once turned into content stop belonging to you, and they belong to the response they generate. There's a quiet experiment happening every time someone posts something and then waits to see how many people responded, waits to find out if the moment was validated, and if the numbers are low, something slightly uncomfortable settles. Psychologists Edward D.C. and Richard Ryan developed what's known as self-determination theory, the idea that human beings function best when their actions come from internal motivation rather than external reward. When you do something because it genuinely matters to you, your sense of self stays intact. When you begin doing things in order to receive approval, something shifts. People who don't post protected themselves from a specific kind of vulnerability, the kind where your sense of self becomes dependent on how strangers respond to a photograph. Everyone knows, intellectually, that social media is a highlight reel. People post the vacation, not the argument that happened on the second day. They post the promotion, not the months of quiet anxiety that preceded it. The meal, not the loneliness of eating it alone the night before. This is understood, and yet, knowing something rationally and being protected from it emotionally are two entirely different things. Psychological research consistently shows that passive scrolling triggers automatic social comparison processes. The brain doesn't pause to fact-check what it sees. It simply registers, their life looks like that. Yours feels like this. This is the quiet tax of scrolling without posting. You absorb other people's performed highlights while sitting inside your own unfiltered reality. Here's a distinction worth making. Many people who never post on Instagram or TikTok will spend an hour watching YouTube without hesitation. And on the surface, that might look inconsistent. Aren't they all just screens? But the psychological experience of each platform is fundamentally different, and the people who feel this difference most acutely are usually the ones who've quietly organized their digital life around it. Instagram and TikTok are performance stages. To participate fully, you need a persona, a face, a voice, an aesthetic, a personal brand, and even if that brand is just authentic person being real. Every post is an act of self-presentation. The platform asks, who are you and how would you like to be seen? YouTube, by contrast, asks nothing in return. You can watch a 3-hour documentary, a quiet cooking video, an explanation of something you've always wondered about, and leave no trace of yourself at all. There's a certain kind of social life that looks quiet from the outside. A small number of close friends, plans made through direct messages rather than public stories, birthdays remembered personally, not through a notification, no audience, no followers, no running count of who's watching. To someone deeply embedded in social media culture, this can look like isolation. To the person living it, it often feels like the opposite. Social psychology research has returned to the same finding repeatedly across decades. It is the quality of relationships, not the quantity, that most reliably predicts long-term happiness and emotional well-being. Not how many people know your name, how many people actually know you. There is a meaningful difference between someone who has 2,000 followers who recognize their face and someone who has 3 friends who would answer the phone at midnight. Not posting doesn't mean not paying attention. In fact, for many people who rarely share anything publicly, the opposite is true. They watch very carefully. They notice when someone who used to post every day suddenly goes quiet. They register the shift in tone between one caption and the next. The forced cheerfulness that wasn't there 3 months ago. The vague post that's clearly about something specific. They see the inconsistencies between what a person projects and what quietly leaks through at the edges. They just never say any of this out loud. There's a particular kind of social intelligence that develops when you remove yourself from the performance. When you're not managing your own image, you have considerably more attention available to observe everyone else's. Non-posters often become fluent in the unspoken language of social media. They read between the lines almost automatically. Psychologists make a distinction that most people have never heard named, but will recognize immediately once it is. There are 2 different kinds of self-consciousness. The first is public self-consciousness, an ongoing awareness of how you appear to others, how you're being perceived, evaluated, remembered. People high in this tend to be acutely sensitive to their social image, and social media, for them, becomes a natural extension of that concern. The second is private self-consciousness, an inward orientation, an awareness of your own thoughts, your values, the gap between what you feel and what you show. People high in this tend to spend considerably more time examining their inner world than managing their outer one. Most people contain both, but the balance differs, and for people who rarely post, the internal register tends to be significantly louder than the external one. They're not indifferent to how they're seen, they're simply more preoccupied with how they actually are. And then there's something harder to articulate but deeply true. Certain moments lose something when they become content. Not everything. Some things translate beautifully, but some experiences carry a specific weight that depends on remaining unwitnessed. The conversation that changed how you think about something, the place you return to alone, the grief you move through quietly. When those moments stay private, they remain fully yours, unmediated, unperformed, unfiltered through the expectations of an audience. They don't need to be legible to strangers to be meaningful. They already are, and that, in itself, is a form of power that no number of likes can replicate. We live in a time that has made visibility feel like a virtue. Post more, share more, show more, and somehow you'll be more. It's a quiet pressure most people absorb without ever deciding to, and for 5 billion users it works well enough. But there has always been another group, quieter, harder to see, precisely because they've chosen not to make themselves easy to find. People who understood that an experience witnessed by no one is still an experience. That identity built inward without public confirmation can be the most stable kind. They are not hiding. They have simply made a different calculation about where meaning actually lives, and arrived at an answer that doesn't require an audience to be valid. Many people will reach the end of their lives regretting they didn't live more fully. Very few will regret they didn't post more often. The quiet ones already know that. They just never felt the need to announce it. If something here felt familiar, share it with someone who would understand. And if you want to keep exploring the quieter side of psychology, subscribe.